What are some of your first memories? And why do you think these memories stayed with you? So give us just a few memories, turning points in your life or, throughout your childhood. And why do you think these memories stayed with you from then up until now?
It's funny, the first thing that came into my head, my first memory is, so growing up, I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house, and her neighbors, I think I must have been like 7 or 8, and our neighbors, Lee and Nina, they were like teenagers, so they were like the cool kids, so of course, I always wanted to hang out with them. And it's funny, but my first memory, I guess, is a memory of pain. I remember one day we were all playing in their front yard, and there was a massive ant bed. And I don't remember who pushed me in the ant bed, but one of them pushed me in the ant bed, and the ants just engulfed my body and just bit me.
Oh, no.
I remember I was just screaming and crying. And I remember that night I had to take a oatmeal bath. I get all the blisters from when ants bite. But that's interesting because my first memory of childhood was one of pain. And no one's ever asked me that before. I'll never forget that ant bed. I'll never forget that ant bed and the pain and being in that blue bathtub with my grandmother trying to, because I guess I didn't understand how another human being could inflict pain, because they knew ants caused pain, and they pushed me into the ant bed knowing that that would disrupt the ants and the ants. So I think that was my first encounter of human beings knowingly inflicting pain on another human.
So what were, between your childhood up until, let's say, high school, what were some turning points in your life?
Between childhood and high school.
You can even say college. We can even venture out to say college.
Well, I think, my life, as funny as I wanted to, my life was actually quite boring. It was very, very routine. My grandmother was a very big part of my life, and it was very routine. Like we went to Bible study on Wednesday, rehearsal on Friday, church. We were 7-day Adventists. Went to church on Saturday, with the Pathfinders on Sunday. And I recently had this conversation with my grandmother. I said to her, no one ever asked me what I liked, or no one ever asked me what I wanted to do. And I remember, obviously growing up, I think everyone could see that I was different from the other boys. Like I wanted to do gymnastics, and I wanted to, I always wanted to do what society would deem as the girly things, which I even want to try to remove labels from these things. I don't want to gymnastics is labeled as girly, or ballet is labeled as girly, or theater, because that's what the problem is the labels. We need to remove them. But anything that I loved, or I was passionate about, I loved theater. I wanted to be in all the plays, and I loved gymnastics, and I even loved, I used to know all the cheers. I loved watching the cheerleaders. And of course, in the Black community, again, he gonna be a faggot, or he gonna have to use that's word that was used with me. He gonna be soft, and I felt bad for my mom. I did, because I can understand, as a young mother in your early 20s and people telling you this about your firstborn, that must be really painful to hear. So I can also empathize with her, because she was trying to shift that narrative, and she was, I remember she forced me to play football. And I remember on the football field crying in tears, because the boys just kept tackling. Like, in football, you tackle. Tackle. And it was so bad, because the coach would say, tackle Zadrian, we're going to make a man out of him. And again, there's another human being inflicting pain on a human being, knowing that it's pain being. And I remember after every football practice, I would say to my mom, I was like, please don't make me go back. I don't want to do that. They just pick on me. I guess she thought that I was going to try to make me hard. She made me play basketball, and my childhood was it was like,
what's that thought?
Like it was It was a Black family trying to do the best that they could do in the South. That's what my childhood was. And
Don't try to story tell it. It is what it is, you know?
it is what it is. Like, I can also, like, now I can kind of like empathize with my family because, you know, I was raised by 4 Black women and there weren't really any men in my life. So they were just, you know, they were all, for the most part, they were all religious, but they were all just trying to do the best that they could do for me because they wanted the best for me. But I don't think that they realized that what
Mm-hmm.
was the best for me was actually hurting me. You know what I mean? So it was hard. And I think that that's why I did so well in school because school became my escape. And that's why I'm very concerned about children who are forced to be home now, who can't go to school, because for a lot of children, school is your escape. It's the one place where you can go into the library and just read books and not be disturbed. It's the one place where you don't have to play football, you don't have to play basketball. I mean, you can, and that's great. But if you're smart and if you're intelligent, people like you. And I caught that quick. I realized very quickly that, okay, if I'm smart and if I'm super academic and I'm super intelligent, people are going to start ignoring my sexuality, and that's exactly what happened. As soon as I started excelling academically, and as soon as I started being the best in the class, and you know, it for some reason people were like, "Oh, it's okay. He doesn't have to play basketball. He's really smart. He's the smartest person in the school."
Mm-hmm.
I latched onto that. That was my trajectory throughout life has been be the smartest person in the room because your brains are going to be what carries you through. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. In the same way that a person who plays basketball, you know, they might realize, okay, I'm really good at basketball. I'm not good at academics. So let me focus on the basketball because I think we all realize that we have something that makes us,
Mm-hmm.
and this it goes back to, and you asked this question a while ago when you said, what makes my story unique? But I think what makes my story unique is, you know, is I think it's just being able to acknowledge now and to put on the table piecing all these things together because a lot of people don't piece these things together. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people die with the dots not connected, and I'm trying to connect my dots. That's what I'm trying to do is connect my dots.
Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
What was your relationship with your family like? And how has it evolved? What role did religion play in it? So let's talk about that for a minute.
I would say it was very controlling,
Mm.
very controlled. It was very contrived. Um, But I say that to say, for instance, my mother, people always say I am a workaholic and I work very hard. And I know for 100% that's from my mother. My mother is the kind of woman who, you know, she had a job at McDonald's, she had a job at a security place. She worked and she worked and she worked because she knew she had to provide and she wanted to provide the best for her children. You know, I think she I think through me, she wanted, and you said this on the phone, it really stuck with me. I think my mother didn't have the opportunity, you know, because she got pregnant when she was a student at FAMU, I think in her junior year. She was 1 year away from completing her degree. And I think that that still haunts her to today. And I think that my mother saw in me the opportunity to break family curses, to break
Mm-hmm.
curses. So, you know, even though we couldn't really afford it, she put me through private school. I never went to public school. I went to private school my entire life. And I don't care what anybody says, it's about resources. You know, I thank God that now they have magnet schools and they have private schools, opportunities and scholarships available for minorities because
Mm-hmm.
if I had gone to public school, I probably would still be in Savannah. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
go to public schools, it's a completely different narrative. It's a completely different trajectory. You don't get the same resources that you get in private school. In private school, you know, you get a little bit more time. Like it's less. You know, I think there was only 100 people, 96 people in my
Yeah.
graduate class from high school, and there was a class, there was 20 people in the class. So you get this nurturing and you get this attention, and because you go to a private school, you kind of already think that you're better than everybody else, and that That's impactful. That impacts you. Some people might call it arrogance. Some people might call it what you may. The fact of the matter is you go to the best school in Savannah. So what is expected of you is the best. That transforms your performance. If you just go to a public school, unless you are a really driven, hungry person, it's more difficult. There's much more distractions. In private school, I mean, and I went to Catholic private school, so you know, the priests and the nuns, they're not having it. They're not having it. So and that's all because of my mother. My mother made sure I went to private school, and I'm going to always be forever indebted to her, because had she not made that sacrifice, had she not pushed, had she not worked hard to make sure that I stayed in private school my entire life, my story would be completely different. I wouldn't have the access, I wouldn't have the know-how, and I wouldn't have the resources that were made available to me to exit from. So yes, so on that end, the relationship was great. I think I honestly think the relationship with my family, it was what it was. Like, I know that my family, my auntie Deborah, my auntie Vet, my mother, my grandmother. My grandmother was very much like a mother to me. My auntie Deborah was very much like a mother to me, and my auntie Vet was the cool one. She was the one, she moved to Atlanta. She was the one to come back with the gifts and with the fashion. I always say that I got my subconsciously, I was sucking in all her fashion sense, and she's feel like, she creates, she makes clothes, but what I didn't realize is that subconsciously I was taking all of that from her. From my grandmother, this woman travels the world. My grandmother is 70, 73, 74, still traveling, still traveling the world. And now I can't get enough of traveling. So and she made sure that she took me with her on these excursions. So even then, she didn't realize it, but by taking me to these different places, I was getting glimpses of how other people live.
Right.
And I think you said it was about hope. I was seeing that there was a hope beyond Savannah. My relationship with my family was great, but I think as I got older and they started to realize, as I started to want to live into my truth and started saying to them, oh, I think I might be gay, that's where it started to get a little bit ugly. And I think the acceptance was not there. It was not there. And I think, there were Bible studies, there were prayer services of them. And again, you have to empathize with them because they want what's best for me. Ultimately, they don't want me to be gay because they associate my gayness with me going to hell. They don't want Zadrian to go to hell and to burn. So that's why they were doing the Bible studies and then prayer services, because that's all they know. That's that's their faith. And I respect my family for having such a strong faith that they would even say to someone that they love that you need to change, otherwise you're going to go to hell. I don't condone that. I don't believe that. The God that I serve does not preach that. So it's just spirituality with my family is a conversation that we don't really. It's to each their own. It's to each their own. And I think, honestly, to be fair, I think spirituality should be it's an individual journey. It's an individual experience. But I think it becomes problematic when you try to make your spirituality condemn me. As long as I'm not killing anybody or doing anything that's causing anybody harm, and we know what's right from wrong, then I don't want to receive or hear your condemnation. I'm not interested. I felt so inadequate for years, so much self-hate. I have moments where I think to myself, oh my God, maybe being gay is wrong. Maybe I am going to go to hell. That's still conflicted in my brain because that's what I was taught my entire life, that if you were gay, God was going to punish you and you were going to catch AIDS and you were going to die. So imagine being that's your existence. How do you live with that?
How do you move in that?
How do you move in that?
How do you move in that?
Sabotage yourself.
Because that thought is always in the back of your mind, no matter where you go.
Don't live in transparency. You're tiptoeing around. You have one set of friends where you're gay, Zadrian. You have another set of friends where you're Christian, Zadrian. You go home to your family, then you're the family's Zadrian. You become this schizophrenic person. You're trying to live up to everyone else's expectations of who they want you to be, and ultimately, you're not living up to the expectations to yourself of who you want.
Hence, you begin to tell a story.
Yep.
in every aspect of your life.
Every aspect of your life. Your life becomes a
Yeah.
fabric.
Yeah. And then the facade is always there.
Always.
Always there.
Before you know it, the lie becomes your truth. Before
Yeah.
people ask you questions and the lie just comes out. You just be like, you convince yourself to believe.
Growing up, I know you said you didn't have any father figures in your life. And I'm kind of because I know you, so I know the backdrop. I know they may have been men or a man that your mom dated,
Right.
was married to, or had a relationship with, or I'm sure she did, because she's a beautiful woman,
Right.
So in this relationship, the men or the man that she had in her life, were they father figures to you, or
Good. The
absolutely not?
men that she had in her life, it's funny, but the men that she had in her life were deadbeat. I watched
Mm,
I watched my mother be physically hit. I watched my mother be emotionally abused. One of her boyfriends tried to kill me.
mm.
You know, I don't think people realize,
There's the pain and there's the trauma again, you know?
and I would always get upset with her because I just feel like, why would you put these men before your children? Like, I felt like, why would you put like, you see these men, first of all, they're treating you badly, and then they're treating your children badly. This man just tried to kill your child, and the next day we're just sitting around the dinner table like it's normal. That's not normal.
A facade.
Everything is okay. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't really be upset with her. Well, I can be upset with her, but she was a product of her environment. My grandmother was physically abused. My grandmother was emotionally abused. I'm not here to tell their story, and I don't think that's fair for me to do. But they have to tell their story in their own time.
Mm-hmm.
This is about me. But I just want to make that point because we're talking about my mother, and it's just about these generational curses. You have to break these generational curses. Children become products of what they see in their adolescence and as they're growing up. And my mother just wanted somebody to love her. She just wanted a man to love her. And because she had seen my grandmother with men that she loved physically and emotionally abusing her, she said, well, okay, well, this is love. This is what I know to be love. So when
Mm-hmm.
we're doing that to her, she was like, well, this is love. This is what
Mm-hmm.
mom had is love, so this must be love. It's something
Mm-hmm.
like when you talk about it, that it's deep. It's psychologically,
Yes.
it's like,
Embedded. It's deep.
it's like deeper than deep can go. And that's why I keep using that word empathy, because when you start to realize how deep it is, you can't be upset because you're like, this is bigger than me. This is deeper than.
Mm-hmm.
This goes back, what happened in my grandmother's life? What did she see? What did her mother see? What did her mother see? And then you get back, now you're getting into slavery. So what did they see? They saw people being beat if they didn't pick enough cotton in one day. That
Mm-hmm.
trickulates down. And we're still, as a community, we're still dealing with that trauma. That trauma is not healed. That trauma is
Mm-hmm.
and,
And
and
it
now, because as a race, African Americans, we have a little bit more of a platform to be vocal, and now we have or we can go and get therapy. These were resources that were never available to us. We're only now starting to unpick that stuff,
mm-hmm.
deal with it.
And it goes back to what you said in the beginning and the start of this interview, that African Americans are told what goes on in this house stays in this house. Everything is hush.
Yep.
So then your experiences are never passed on to the next generation. So the generational curse can be healed, can be dealt with. This is my first time ever hearing that, you were abused to the point where he tried to kill you. You know what I mean? And I think we talk about everything.
Right.
And for me to just hear that now, it's like, that was deep down somewhere that did not want to be brought up. That's painful to hear. Very painful to hear. But it's real.
It's
It's real. It's real. And it happens.
It's like mental health in the African American community is such a taboo topic. And I think we have so many issues as a community as a whole because you've been traumatized for your ancestry, your legacy is one of trauma for 350 plus years. It doesn't heal with a let's go to church and get on our knees at the altar call and pray. I'm sorry.
No.
It doesn't heal that. It doesn't
let us pray that you're right.
That could be a part of your journey, but I'm sorry. Yeah. There's no amount of Sunday services that are going to heal that. Because it's so deep. It'll heal. That's what it'll do. It'll heal it on the surface level. And then on Wednesday, maybe Monday and Tuesday, you're all, oh girl, I'm great. God is good. Praise the Lord. I'm covered in the blood. But Wednesday and Thursday, you cursing out your neighbor.
Yeah.
Your husband, y'all fighting in the back, y'all fighting in the bedroom, and the children can hear that. And then on church and pray for him. I can't.
Yeah. So maybe the prayer should be, God, put the right people in our lives, or put the right people, the counselor, the psychiatrist, the psychologist in our life that can provide us healing. Set that up so you can put me with the right people that can get me healed.
The prayer is simpler than that. The prayer is simply, God, give me permission to live in my truth. Give me permission to seek help. People, and this is not a race thing. This is just in general.
Yes.
We're taught to be strong. That's be strong. Fight through the pain. That's what we're taught as human beings. That's what you're taught. So at any sign of weakness or vulnerability, you push that to what's that? You push that push that to the side.
Yes.
That's how we've been trained.